Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Tyler Postle with us today. He's co-founder at Voker.ai, which is a Y Combinator Summer 2024 company. Tyler is a pretty smart guy. He was CPO at a bunch of companies, started that one about 11 months ago. Voker is an interesting company. Certainly, it leveraged AI to help people create better products. I'll share my screen in a couple of moments, but Tyler, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and about why you decided to actually start Voker?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Yeah, appreciate you having me on. A little bit about myself. My background's in data science. I actually started out as a physics major in undergrad, but caught the entrepreneurial bug early on. And I joined a e-commerce startup as one of the first analysts, built out the data science function there, and have been interested in machine learning and AI ever since.
Very cool. Yeah. And you said you caught the entrepreneurial bug. Why was that? Because I see you've also worked at a couple of companies. What was your first catch of that bug? When was it?
Yeah, it was actually in college. I went to UC Santa Barbara, and there was an entrepreneurs association on campus, and they were hosting this event called Startup Weekend, which is sort of organized and sponsored by Techstars. And I decided to attend, and really just loved that rush of, working hard for a weekend, pretty much barely sleeping and just working the whole time and coming up with an idea and going out and validating your product in the market. And so that's kind of where I first realized maybe I wouldn't continue on the research journey, and started looking into sort of early startup opportunities coming out of college.
Hackathon style. And what are the parallels between physics and the startup world? Like, do you think in physics when it comes to building a startup and a product?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of hard for physics degree to not shape the way you think about like the world and the way you approach problems. I think there's a lot of problem solving, obviously, when you're starting a company. And so, you hear this all the time. People talk about first principles. One of the things that I think about a lot is sort of the extremes. In a lot of physics phenomena, you kind of have like maybe the minimum or the maximum case when you take something to infinity or to zero. And so lots of times when we're thinking about solving a business problem, that framework comes to mind for me, just from my physics background.
And how is that? Is it, how reality works? Is it getting from 0 to 1, laws of speed, momentum, thermodynamics? Like, how do you tend to think in terms of business?
Yeah, I think probably a lot in kind of equations. It's kind of like, what are the inputs? I mean, especially when you're building sort of an operating motion, whether that's go to market and how much money you want to spend on ads or how much money you want to invest in building out a team. It's kind of thinking like, what is the sort of the graph look like over time of, okay, if we put this much time and energy or money into hiring out a team, when do we get the returns? Those kind of things, and kind of forecasting out in this sort of mathematical equation.
Because I saw, that you were passionate about building high performance teams. In your opinion, how did OpenAI happen? How did they reunite so many talented individuals in one room? Have you analyzed that one?
I haven't like spent a lot of time looking into that, but I could give a guess. And my guess is normally, I think you have to be pretty focused in business in general, especially in the startup world, right? Like there's so many things you could do, so many decisions you could make. And so being really clear on your vision, whether that's about where the market's going to be or how you should build a company or a team, I think that having like, it's kind of like with marketing messaging, right? You want to find the right audience to talk to and share the right message to them. It's the same with building a team, is having like a clear and consistent message and realizing it's not going to resonate with like 99.999% of people. And that's okay, because you want this like very focused team that fits well with your skill sets and the way that you see the world. And
So how did you pick your co-founder? Let's start with that.
Yeah, Alex and I actually worked together back at the first entrepreneurial company I worked at, which was lol.com, a bootstrapped direct-to-consumer mattress brand. And Alex was an early intern on one of our data teams. And at the time I had a director of data engineering who was kind of leading that team. And so I didn't even work with Alex directly that closely, but I was always hearing these updates of like, oh, Alex just spent the weekend rewriting the whole code base and it's like so much better than anything I could have done, and different things like that. And so I kind of knew we had someone special there, and kept an eye out on him. And then over time, we had the opportunity to work together in some consulting gigs where I had some of the strategic connections and kind of was helping with data science and analytics strategy. And Alex was the engineer in the background building the scalable systems. And so we just loved working together, and it was a good sort of pair of our skills. And so over time, we were continuously brainstorming ideas for a business, and that ended up with Voker.
Tell me a bit more about LOL. What was the engineering behind that one?
Yeah, so LOL was pretty unique for a direct-to-consumer company. You'd think that maybe not super focused on the engineering or data side, but that's actually not true. A large portion of our team was devoted to data science, data engineering in general. We had one of the founders and the CTO of the business had actually developed his own tracking system, like back before UTM parameters were super popular. And so we had an internal tracking system that let us track like every touch point of a user before that became super common. People were still using like last click, and we were already thinking about, okay, multi-touch, incrementality. And so because we were bootstrapped, we really used data science and our marketing engine to really make sure that every dollar we were spending was actually incrementally profitable, rather than just like having some large budget and spending it on billboards or something you can't track. And so we had a large data function to do the predictions around how likely is it for this ad to convert? What's the incrementality of that dollar that we spent? Should we be spending more or less? And my boss, the president and CMO, would always say like, hey, well, we have an infinite budget as long as it's profitable. And so that was kind of the math equation we were trying to solve there.
That's always easy to say, right? And getting profitable is incredibly hard, as you probably know. Tell me about your YC story. How did you get in, and how was that game changing for you?
Yeah. Like I said, Alex and I had been doing consulting together. We both were working kind of in the data space, and we had been following YC and familiar with it. But it's kind of tough to make that leap to start your own company. Really want to be all in and be able to spend the time and have the complete focus to build a business. And so, Alex had experienced some pains at the job he was working at with the state of the tooling that existed for building with LLMs or generative AI. And so he had this idea that he came to me on one of the weekends that we worked together on our side projects. And he was like, hey, I think we should apply to Y Combinator with this. And I thought it was a great idea. And so we jumped in. In terms of how we got in, I think we got pretty lucky, because it is a super desirable and tough environment to join. But we're so grateful because it really changed the trajectory of our business and helped teach us so much in such a condensed time.
And which are your favorite PG Paul Graham principles?
Oh, good question. I don't even know. I think I honestly lean more on maybe I'm biased because Dalton was our group partner, but I lean more on the Dalton and Michael videos on YouTube. They're a great pair. We got the opportunity to work together with them as they were our sort of mentors and group partners throughout the batch. And it's a good kind of balance, yin and yang. They both have great insights, and Dalton's a bit more reserved and methodical, and Michael's definitely provocative and outspoken. And so I don't know. I just think a lot about those kind of conversations that they shared with us.
Right. And you seem to be at the right place at the right time, right? Like shipping AI features in minutes, no coding required. Yes, a bunch of people are vibe coding nowadays, but they're not like fully completing their app into a working prototype. Tell me about the Voker idea and why you suspect we may get product market fit.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there's a lot of companies that are doing great things focused on like this early prototyping or even writing code. But obviously AI is not yet at a place where it's building itself. And so you still need, good teams, software engineers, AI engineers, product managers to work together to build actual AI features. So Voker helps you build LLM-powered features into your software, into your back office, into your product. And so if you aren't a large company like Microsoft or someone who can invest tons in an in-house team or infrastructure, you could just use Voker's platform. We have a UI that makes it easy to prototype and build LLM features. It lets you share them across stakeholders. So a product manager might have an idea for how AI could improve a workflow in their own software. They can prototype it themselves without bogging down their engineers. They can then show an example to a stakeholder, get some approval before actually devoting the engineering resources. And all the engineers need to do is use the API endpoint for that specific prototype they built on our platform and just integrate a front end around it in their software. And so we kind of abstract out a lot of the busy work and the redundant like infrastructure that you have to stand up, like vector databases and calls to all the different LLM providers, make it easy.
And compared to your competitors, where are you going that they aren't?
Yeah, the space is really crowded. There's a ton of great tools being built. We're really focusing on those businesses where AI can be transformative for saving a ton of money for their bottom line or even improving their consumer experience. But it's not like their core focus, right? So they are not going to invest in building out a whole AI engineering team. It's going to take way too much time. It's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire these AI engineers who are rightfully so getting paid a lot these days. And so we really focus on kind of having a low floor and a high ceiling. So we want to make it easy for a stakeholder to preview an example of an AI feature. We want to make it easy for a PM who is technical, but not a coder necessarily, to build a prototype. And then we want to make it easier for the developer to integrate these things into their existing systems. Super hardcore, deep training your own model use cases, like that's not for us. But if you want to integrate AI in lots of different places of your business and have actual tangible ROI, we want to make it really easy for you to test those things and get them into production quickly.
And who should go super hardcore and VS who shouldn't?
I mean, first of all, businesses that have a lot of just internal data that other companies don't, and probably need to have really big budgets, because to train your own model or to really fine tune it well, you're going to need a great team. You're going to need a lot of infrastructure, but that's a big investment to decide. I mean, that could be millions of dollars. If instead you are really like bottom line and growth driven business, you want to get tangible results in the next weeks. You don't want to wait years to invest in making this bet that you're going to have the best, construction data possible, so that you're going to be the best construction focused LLM, and you just want to improve the manual tasks that your teams are wasting time on, or improve the experience in your workflows of your own software for your customers, then you should use Voker.
Interesting. And yeah, where are you seeing most big companies stand into that? Do they create their own AI/technical departments? Let's say a Fortune 1000. Do they already have that? Are they investing in GPUs and creating their own LLMs, or are they just not catching up?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are investing in that. I mean, I'm surprised with how many, I'd say maybe not even 1,000, but even definitely not the mom and pop shops, but there's a lot of mid-sized companies that are hiring heads of AI and all of these things, which is great to see people leaning in and investing in the space. But it also begs the question of how much have you already validated before doing that, or how much of it just is a bet because you were told to do it. And so again, I came from a bootstrap business where everything we did was an A/B test. We want to measure profitability and success. And so that's kind of how we've tried to set up this platform, is make it really easy. It should take you days to get your first AI use case that's going to save you probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then you can move on and continue to reinvest those savings in the business. If you're a large company with a huge budget, of course, you can kind of make that big bet and extend millions of dollars over a multi-year time horizon and hope for a return.
So the simpler solution would be to buy Voker and have my existing engineers, for example, use you even if they don't have AI coding experiences.
Exactly. The integration will be super familiar because it's just an API. This is something traditional software engineers are familiar with, and they can learn on the platform, okay, what are some of the nuances to dealing with a non-deterministic system? But we have the monitoring tools, we have the A/B comparison tools and things like that in the platform to help make it easier versus like if you do this in-house, you need to build all of these tools internally. And why is everyone going to kind of create the same infrastructure across all these businesses?
Do some of them also hire fractionals or consultants, for example, and these could be the middlemen? They know the company's needs, they've signed NDAs, but they still don't know how to make it technically happen. Could these also be decision makers for you?
Yeah, I do see there's a lot of IT consulting, dev shops, agencies that are doing great work of helping to be these outsourced teams for companies. I think the one struggle though is that like they then have to build again a homegrown system for every single business. It's not their core competency to build like their own internal software that's robust for production use. And so instead, again, it's a lot of like one-off projects, whereas where we've seen some of these companies have success is they partner with Voker. And so like a dev shop would use Voker as the platform that they're able to deliver to their clients a lot faster, and it scales with them well.
Now let's get into the wilder philosophical part. Do you feel that the AI agent revolution has already kickstarted itself? Are we starting seeing jobs being slashed by AIs nowadays?
I mean, yeah, I think it's starting, but I think like we're still so early. I mean, you look at Google Sheets and Google Slides, and you try to ask it to like make a PowerPoint slide for you. It's still not impressive to me. Like I think the capabilities, I know where it can be, and it's still not there, right? And so I think we're only in the early innings of how, and the intelligence of the models is improving, but we also need to integrate these systems into all of our existing software, rethink the UI. It's not all going to be a chatbot. I think that was one of the like things that kind of slowed down this revolution, is that everyone thought that every single AI use case has to be a chatbot, and that's actually where Voker started. Was we were kind of showing use cases where like you could do an analysis with a button. Yes, an AI is doing it behind the scenes, but does the user need to know that? Do they need to have a whole conversation back and forth with someone when they could just click a button? And so, yeah, I think there's still a lot of stops and starts with kind of the UX and approach to how we integrate AI.
Why do you think these giants are so slow?
I think it just kind of comes with like size. Like the bigger you get, one of the reasons that we wanted to go back to working and building a startup is because like there's something so dynamic and awesome about working with like a team where you're all aligned in terms of how you work, what you're working on. You're not wasting time on bureaucracy or slide decks or other things like that. And that just happens. The more people you have a lot more momentum, more inertia, thinking back to physics, but it's also a lot harder to turn the ship.
Right. The chat interface, what would be a better interface in your opinion? Like, would it be just like a good experience with buttons? What would be the interface of the future? Would it even be like voice command or VR? I guess like 30 years from now would be a Neuralink or something.
Yeah.
But short term, what kind of interface would be better than a chat? I find chats really useful, especially if you ask the right questions, right? But people don't.
I think not this is a cop out, but I think that it really just depends on the use case, right? Like if you have something where you're going to have a bunch of different types of questions, a chat's great for that. If you need follow-up, deep dive, and it's going to be a different sort of thought process every time, like a different person's going to need different information, then yeah, chat can be great. But if you're on a real estate listing website and you want to compare 10 properties based on your investment thesis, why should you have to type all that out? Instead, just click a few check boxes and hit run and get an analysis. And that's, one of the examples that we show on our website. And so I think it really just depends on like the user experience. Voice is great for some cases, but like if you're in a crowded place, like, are you really going to be talking into your phone? So
yeah, I guess all interfaces would be personalized to the user depending on the data that they put in, the interactions that they had before. If chat is better for me and my type of brain, right? Like, so be it. If it's buttons or voice, for example, so be it. So yeah, like that. What are some of your AGI predictions? Are we on track to get it in the, well, first let's start with the definition, right? What's your definition of AGI, of super intelligence, and when should we get it concretely?
Good question. I'm one of those people. I'm a skeptic in general. I think this again comes just from my research and physics background, where like I think as I started doing research, I learned that like, oh, even the textbooks that were written are just based on research papers, which might not even have been a perfect study of like the right number of observations to reach statistical significance. And so I think there's a lot more that computers and AI is going to do, but I'm not someone who thinks that in the next like year we're going to hit some singularity that everything's going to change. I still just look at the fact that like people still don't know how to use Google Sheets or even their email inbox or the remote. And so I think that there's a lot that technology can do, but it also never, there's always that initial promise when you think of like something could do, but it takes a lot longer than we think to actually have that become reality. And so we're really focused here again on like, what are the tangible things we can do today with AI that will improve a user's experience, that will save a business money, that will make a business more money, and we're less, like worried about the future of, will my phone even matter anymore because I'll be talking into a Neuralink or something like that.
Right. And do you feel that AI, first, do you feel it's being democratized right now? And second, if you use AI, is AI fair? Basically, does it give people with more money? And does it give people with less money? Does it widen the gap?
Yeah. First of all, I do think it has democratized, just like the internet let people have access to information that they didn't before. Obviously, not everyone has the same access to internet, but I do think I've seen all sorts of use cases where I'm surprised that like folks that I wouldn't have thought as like tech forward actually are way more capable of using like ChatGPT to like build, I don't know, logos for their new business that they want to launch and come up with a business model and get the registration filing that like would have taken them so much time and expertise. And so that's really awesome to see that democratization happening. On the other side about like fairness and model bias and everything, there's absolutely bias in these models. As someone who did machine learning for many years, and again, coming from like this physics background, all these things are trained on data that already has inherent bias. It's great that it seems like companies are trying to think about that, but we know that there's always this trade-off between innovation and breaking things. And obviously businesses are gonna kind of pick their lane of how far they want to go with that. But at the end of the day, again, the data that everything's trained on and the way that society works is going to play a part in these models. And it's an extremely complicated problem to think about. How do you actually even detect where that's happening? But there are some, great teams and folks that are thinking about that, which is great.
I'm also a skeptic. And as a skeptic, how do you make your decisions? How much of science, quote unquote, right? And how much personal experience? On the other hand, how do you optimize your decisions so that, yes, you don't make errors and you maximize good decisions and you're not just these overly skeptic people that cannot even make a decision and are sort of sour about life?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Honestly, it's something I struggle with. I think that coming from this like super data driven background where I had experience in a business where we had enough volume working with consumers, you get a lot more volume on clicks and, like conversions and everything that you can make decisions based on, data and science and trends and graphs. And it's a lot harder, especially in an early stage startup, to like kind of have that taste and that gut feeling. And so I think number one, is having a team that like helps balance out the things that I, when I get into, yep, exactly. Maddie, Vahan, other folks on the team that really balance out when I'm stuck in like a loop of overanalyzing something. I'll be like, Maddie, like help me just make sure we actually get something done. Or, Vahan's actually sitting there talking to tons of people when he's doing product research. And so, okay, what's your best assessment from these 20 conversations? Sure, it's not stat sig, it's not a million conversations, but we can use past experience to make our best bet at what to build. And then we'll see how our customers use it and then iterate from there.
So do you actually trust your gut or is it mostly data? Because I also struggle with that. Sometimes I don't trust my gut. My gut is telling me something and it's like, nah, I need more data before I make a decision here, and vice versa.
I think it depends on the category. Like, I really do lean on data, as much as I can. That's just kind of how my brain works. But there are places where I trust my gut around like, investing in the team, the folks that we bring on board, listening to the customer. Like there's sort of these principles that I trust my gut on, but then when you don't have, 20 million customers, how do you decide, exactly where to go? That can be a challenge. And so that's where it helps to have a team of folks who are kind of execution driven too, to push us to like, let's try something. And then a week later, it's like, oh, now we actually got that data because we tried something.
Right. I love deep researches for that, to get like industry-wide data that is fresh and from multiple sources and putting it to various lens of people that I respect, right? What would Paul Graham do? What would Pat Collison do if that would happen? Thanks for coming on, Tyler. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can check us out at Voker.ai. You can see demos about the product, and feel free to grab a call on our website with me. I love talking to folks and solving business problems. In all my roles before, I've been sort of a business data analyst. And so where we always start with new customers is like, what are the actual business challenges you're focusing on today? Like, what are the initiatives that are going to move the needle for your business? And then we bring in our expertise from talking to so many other folks who have used AI to help you decide like where you should start and get that off the ground quickly with Voker.
So I was Tyler, and